is Sheila Rubin. I have started learning Bharatanatyam when I was not much older than you. I was 16, and I had just moved from Austin, actually, to India. And I'd been doing ballet for 10 years, and I really loved dance. And I'd also been doing piano. I love music. And so my mother's advisor, who was a professor at UT Austin, said, oh, Sheila should study Bharatanatyam and Veena at Rishi Valley School with Kumari Meenakshi and Srimati Visalakshi. And so I was like, huh, okay, whatever that is. And so my sisters and brother and I went to the Rishi Valley School, which is a boarding school in South India. It had at that time a very good dance and music department. And I started learning, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I was born for. And my mom said, okay, you can stay in India and keep going. I had finished 1 year at UT Austin at that point. I went to college early. And so I didn't have to worry about going to college. I had started 1 year of college. So she said, okay, just stay in India and get your degree in music then, and keep studying dance. So that's what I did. And I was there for 12 years. And then when I came back to the States, it was pretty rough. There's no way I could have made a living teaching at that point. First, I'm the wrong color. And there just was not that much interest in anybody learning Bharatanatyam at that point. It was not cool to be Indian. The students that I did get, they were like, okay, they did it as long as their parents made them do it. And then when they got to be about 8th grade, your age, they were like, we want to be cheerleaders. We want to be all America, no Indian stuff for us. So they quit. So it was a long time that I didn't have that many students. I had around 15 or 20, which is not enough to support yourself. I taught school. At that time, I actually started a Waldorf school. It's another big venture that I had no idea what I was doing, but I did it anyway. And so I did that for 21 years, but I taught dance on the weekends all the time. And during that time, I had 4 children, so that kept me kind of busy too. I guess it was in the 90s or so that it started to be really cool to be Indian. And so I had a lot of students that started, going through and doing their Arangetrams. And when people saw that my students were actually very good, they were like, oh, we want our children to join. And so it started, growing and growing and growing. And I always, until my children grew up. So the youngest one graduated from high school in 2004. So it was, just weekends. What really boosted my career in terms of number of students was COVID. Unusual, because my kids, the ones that I had, they, didn't have anything else to do. So they did their schoolwork, but that doesn't take all day. And they practiced, and they did practice really well and had classes every day. And they had lots of Arangetrams every summer. So during the first 20 years or so, I went back to India every few years. But then as I got more and more students, it made more, and I had more children, my children got bigger. It made more sense for me to bring artists to the States so that they could teach my students. So I've been doing that since the 90s, every year, a few years or something like that. So I'll bring artists from India, or I'll get somebody that's on tour from India and have them teach my students. So now I'm 73, so I'm kind of looking at when do I want to cut down. But I have 3 or 4 students who are interested in teaching. And so I'm putting off classes to them so they can teach for me when I'm not available. And if I have students that want more classes, they can take extra classes with those graduates that I have. And then the very beginning students are all taught by one of my graduates. So it's gradually becoming less time that I have to be teaching. And so I teach like maybe 20 hours a week or so now. Anyway, that's where I am now. I got an award for Lifetime Achievement in Bharatanatyam last year.
Congratulations.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. So that's about it. I love it. I love it just as much as when I first decided to do it.
So we're going to ask questions kind of based on like your like lifeline. So we'll start with like why you chose Bharatanatyam. So what about Bharatanatyam made you choose that style over anything else?
I feel it has a spiritual base that I didn't find in ballet. The Hindu mythology speaks to me. It just, the imagery, the devotion, not just devotion, but like great stories. I've always loved stories. I just feel like they feed your heart. They feed your soul. And Bharatanatyam is so rich in stories. And the sky's the limit. You can keep going forever and ever. You can do contemporary stories. So the acting part of it, I also was always involved in acting. I didn't necessarily take classes. I just did every acting project I could find. It just felt comfortable to me. India felt really comfortable to me. I never had any kind of culture shock after going there. I did when I came back. That was hard.
Did you ever consider taking any other style?
I did. I would have loved to study Odissi, but at the time that I lived in Madras, now it's Chennai, there wasn't a good Odissi teacher.
Okay. So at what age did you kind of decide like you knew you wanted to be a professional dancer and that's what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
16. Yeah, I remember. I can pinpoint it because I wrote to my grandmother and I still have the letter. So it was 4 months after I started learning, and I was like, "This is it. This is what I want to do."
Oh, that's lovely.
Just wondering, did you ever have your Arangetram?
Oh yeah, 1971 in Chennai. I got really good reviews. I had a luminary there, Kamala Lakshman, who was she was like a superstar in Bharatanatyam. She was called Baby Kamala because she was, she got really famous when she was a little child. But I guess by the time I did my Arangetram, she must have been, in her 30s or so. My teacher was very happy because Kamala Lakshman came running down the aisle and gave me a giant hug after the Arangetram. So my teacher was like, yes, yes.
That must have been such a memorable experience.
It was, yeah. I wish we had videos from that time. I have photographs, but no videos.
What education did you take to become a professional dancer or teacher?
I did my degree in music, actually, in Veena and vocal music at the Central College of Carnatic Music in Madras. One of my colleagues compares it to the Juilliard of India. Yeah. But I only studied privately for dance. And I actually liked that better because I had private classes. Studying music in college was like I was with a group of students that didn't really care as much about music for sometimes. And the atmosphere wasn't the same as having a private teacher that's teaching you exactly what you want all the time.
Do you still play Veena or sing to this day?
My singing is really bad. I'm not a good singer, so I do sing, but it's not nothing to write home about. And I don't play Veena anymore. I suppose if I had kept playing Veena while I was doing everything else, but raising my children and running a school and doing dance. So dance was the thing that I absolutely can't live without. I'd like, if I couldn't dance or have something to do with dance, I'd feel like I couldn't breathe.
Are your children just as involved as you are in Bharatanatyam?
Not at all. They're involved in their own careers. Yeah, they do all different things. One's an accountant, one's a psychologist, one is an industrial designer, one buys and sells cars. They do very different things. So far, none of my grandchildren are interested either. So, but that's fine. I consider my students to be like my children. And now that I'm getting old, their parents are my children's ages. So I'm like, okay, well, you're my grandchildren.
They're lucky, your students, that you consider them your kids and grandkids.
Oh, well, I just adore them. They're wonderful. I get to be so close with a lot of them. I mean, when you teach somebody for 10 or 12 years, that creates a bond. And then several of them are still with me after 20 years or 30 years. So they're like my family.
Did your family support your decision to become a teacher?
My mother always did. My mother would have loved to stay in India the rest of her life and do like Indian arts and stuff. My father thought I was crazy because I was good, I was strong academically. So I think what he would have been satisfied was to become a physicist or something like that. But it's funny because he kept looking at it like I was fulfilling my mother's dream instead of living my own life. And finally, I was performing for some people actually in Texas. And one of the people who was watching, an Indian guy, said, "You must be really proud of her." And he said, well, yeah, yes, I am. And after that, whenever I had a performance anywhere in Texas, he would come and take photographs and be my big fan. But it took a long time for him to realize that it's actually what I wanted to do, that I wasn't just following my mother's directions.
So we're curious about how your schedule looks like daily, but there was, as you said, many different parts in your career where you did different things. So I was curious, how did your day-to-day life look like when you were learning Bharatanatyam compared to when you were teaching a lot, when you had a lot of students, and then compared to now?
Okay. When I was learning, it was total immersion. I would go to my dancers, I rode my bicycle. I didn't learn to drive till I came back to the States. That was a big adjustment. So I'd ride my bicycle out to my teacher's house and I have class for say from 8 to 10 every morning. And then I would go to college. College started at 10:30 and I'd be there till 4. Then I would go back to my teacher's house and we had rehearsals because we had performances all the time. So every evening, either I would do the little kids dance classes with them, and then after that I would do rehearsals. So it was total immersion. And then I started learning yoga also, so I fit that in there, and then go home and relax and practice my Veena. So I didn't practice dance per se that much outside of school because I was dancing about 5 or 6 hours a day.
And then compared to when you were teaching a lot, you said.
Okay, so when my kids were little, I couldn't teach during the week. I was needed to be with them when they weren't in school. And my students didn't really want classes during the week. Their parents felt like they needed to concentrate on homework. And then the parents, of course, were working, and so they would have to come after work, which was dinner time, and it just didn't work out. But then so I really just taught like the whole weekend, every weekend, from Friday night till Sunday. Then COVID was what changed everything completely, because I would teach probably 4 to 6 hours every single day. And then the kids realized that, yeah, they actually could do classes in the evenings. And COVID made us start using Zoom, which that way, if the parents didn't need to worry about bringing them to me and taking them home and all that, so we could just have daily classes. So I was teaching probably maybe 3 or 4 hours every evening after school. Like during COVID, I taught, 5, 6, 7 hours every day. But after the kids all started going back to school, then I would teach just in the evenings and on Saturdays and Sundays. But those were all very full days. And then I have a nice big house up here in North Carolina. So I have dance camp. There's a room big enough for 2 or 3 dancers to dance, and the house is big enough that they can just stay with me. So I do that every year for the girls that are getting ready for their Arangetrams. And then we dance like 8 hours a day. It's nice. And cook, and I love making pastries and things like that. So I teach them a lot of fun things besides dance.
So just to follow up, Sheila, did you mean that in North Carolina, your house, you host summer camps where the kids getting ready for Arangetram, they live with you and practice?
Yes. Like a Gurukula.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. The first time I was a little nervous about it. I guess I started about 10 years ago. Because I was like, what am I going to do with them all the time? And then once they got there, I usually have 2 or 3 girls at a time. And I was like, my husband and I were like, oh, this is so fun. It's just like when our girls were teenagers, because they interact with each other, and it's just delightful. Cool up here in the mountains. So you know what Austin weather's like. Alabama's about the same. Here we're having a heat wave, and it got up to 83. Oh. And it gets down in the 60s or 50s at night. It's really nice.
I'm assuming most of your students are Indian. Do you have any other students from different ethnicities?
I do. One of my first students is half Hawaiian Chinese and half African American. And she didn't really, I don't know. I used to babysit for her, but she was 2 years old my older 2 children are like a year older and a year younger than her, and her mom was a single parent. So she just was always with me when I was rehearsing or teaching or whatever. And she's got interested in dance. And so now she teaches for me. She does all my administrative work. She is my costume mistress. She's great. She's like close to 50 now. She's been with me since she was 2 years old. So that's her. She's not a great dancer, but she's a really good teacher. And let's see now. I have an American student who just finished her Arangetram, and she's fabulous. She really only got interested in dance at all when she was 17. But she was a theater major at our art school here. They have a School of Fine Arts in Birmingham, and it's a very excellent school. And she did the tech for an Indian dance performance, and she was like, this is what I want to do. So she was 17, and 4.5 years later, she did her Arangetram. So she's just completely passionate about it. And I see her making a career of it. Plus she does tech. So she just, we had Rama Vaidyanathan. I don't know how familiar you are with dancers now, but Rama is one of the most famous Indian dancers these days. We had her perform in Birmingham, and she didn't have a stage manager. And I was like, what? How can you travel without a stage manager? So Rama was doing all of that herself, which is, she's not a spring chicken. She's got some years on her, and that's exhausting. So she had Miriam do it for her. And then she called Miriam to be on her tour for the rest of the United States.
Wow.
So Miriam, with her two sides of performance, being a great performer and a great tech person. So she did her stage managing and lighting design for the tour. So that's Miriam. She's just 21. And I think she has a good, solid career in front of her. And then besides that, I've had some American kids or grown-ups that did it for a while, but nobody's been that serious. But those two are great.
It's kind of rare for a boy to be dancing Bharatanatyam. Have you ever had any male students?
Yeah. I had one guy that did his Arangetram. He was a Tamil guy, but he grew up in Singapore, Malaysia, I think, and he never had an opportunity to dance. So he was doing his PhD work in Birmingham, and he asked if I would accept him as a student. He was 30. And I was like, sure, why not? Two of my teachers are men. I mean, they're very accomplished, very, very, very famous men dancers. And so Kalai learned, and he did his Arangetram when he was 40.
What would you say to guys who want to do dance but are afraid it's like a girl thing?
It just depends on how much they want to do it. I mean, when men become dancers, the bar is lower than it is for girls. That's just the way it is. Everything a man does, a girl has to do twice as well, right? I used to teach ballet when I was a teenager. And one of my students was a boy, and that I'd known since I was a kid. And he became the premier dancer of the Munich Ballet.
Oh,
wonderful.
I mean, not because I was such a great teacher. It just happened that I was his first teacher. I was the one that got him started doing it, and he liked it, and he was really good at it.
So by my understanding, do you choreograph?
Oh, yes, quite a bit.
So what inspires it? What inspires your choreography?
It's always because my students' parents want to dance on such and such a piece of music or whatever it is. It's I don't usually go out and find something that I want to choreograph. If I have a story that I really want to do, so I've done a couple of dances where I have it's multicultural. So those I put together, but I might not choreograph everything. So I'll get other people from other genres to choreograph their parts. So one that I did like that was Raghupati Raghava Rajaram, which is a very popular Raghupati Raghava Rajaram, you know that. Anyway, so I had choreographed that for 5 dancers in Bharatanatyam. And then we were getting ready to do the 25th anniversary of my dance company 20 years ago. And I suddenly had the idea I could do this because it's about people's relationship to God, right? So I thought, why not do it So have different people, like I had an African dance troupe, I had flamenco dancers, I had Middle Eastern dancers, Irish dancers, Russian dancers. I asked them to choreograph something using their own music, expressing their culture's relationship to God. And that was a big success. So it was all like we were all on the studio, on the stage together. And we used the music. Actually, it came about because, again, it wasn't my incentive that started it. There was a conductor of the symphony that loved regular Americans, the Alabama Symphony. He loved Indian music. And so he wrote out one of our tilanas to perform so that was with a symphony orchestra. We performed Paras Tilana, and we had so much fun doing that he said, let's do a whole show. So he was American New York Jew, but he loved yoga and he loved Gandhiji. So he'd watch the movie Gandhi, and he loved the last piece in it where they do Raghupati Raghava. And they do it with just the Indian orchestra, and then the whole Western orchestra comes in. And I get goosebumps even thinking about it. It's just gorgeous music. So so that got that started, that kind of choreography. And then I decided, okay, well, let's just make it bigger. So the last part, and I had a 40-woman chorus singing too. So it was like, I don't know, 60 people on the stage, all different ethnicities and all their different clothes and everything. And so in the last part of it, the Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, all of the dancers were dancing together. Each, in complementary movements, but each in their own distinctive style.
Wow, that must have been such a sight to watch.
It was. I can send you a video of it. I've got a good video.
Yes.
Sure.
Unanimous request.
And then I've used other stories that just spoke to me. One was a Japanese story it was a fairy tale that I loved when I was a little girl. And we did that in Buto style, a Japanese style. And then another one, so I have a friend that's a Buto dancer. So she choreographed it and we all put it together. And we did that one for the 40th anniversary. But in between those, I did one, another Japanese story, the Stonecutter. They're all like children's fables. And I did that. The Stonecutter was Buto, starting Buto. And she was a really good dancer. She was African. Her father was from Africa. I forget which country, Uganda. And her mother was American. And she's just a brilliant dancer and brilliant person. She was working on she was in medical school at the time she did it. But so she was the main character. So the Stonecutter is happy with his lot. He's doing his work. He's happy. And there's a spirit of the mountain that is a big major character, the mountain that he's chipping away at. Then that Mikado, the king, comes by with his whole retinue of soldiers and dancers and everything. And then he becomes discontented and he wishes to become the Mikado. And so the spirit of the mountain hears him and he becomes the Mikado. And then as the Mikado, he's really happy. He rules armies and he has dancers and he loves his garden, but the sun burns the flowers in his garden. So he wants to become the sun. He becomes the sun. Then he really runs amok. He burns everything. And then a cloud comes in between him and the earth. And he realizes the cloud is stronger than he is. And then, so he becomes the cloud and he rains and tears up the whole earth and washes everything away except the mountain. And then he's terrific. He's like, I'm stronger than the Mikado. I'm stronger than the sun. I'm stronger than the rain. And then he feels this little chip at his foot. It's a stonecutter.
Yeah.
So, and it says, and deep inside the mountain trembled. So I did that. And so the Mikado, the stonecutter, the main character was Buto, but then she did all these other kinds of dance too. So let's see now, starting from the Mikado, okay, the court of the Mikado was Buto, but then the dancers were Russian in one version, and then another version, the dancers were Middle Eastern. And then the son was an African, really, really strong South African dancer. He was amazing. And then the rain and the wind and the cloud were the Middle Eastern dancers. And I can send you a video of those too if you want to. But so I've done a lot of stuff like that because I have a lot of friends that all love to dance, and we do different stuff, and we just kind of draw on each other's talents. I've done a lot of stuff with flamenco dancers because the roots of flamenco and the roots of Indian dance have a lot in common in terms of gestures and rhythms. So it works out really well to do those together. And also with modern dancers. So that's just fun.
So you said a while back that sometimes like the parents of the students bring in some music for you to choreograph.
Mm-hmm.
But when you choose the music, like how do you choose it?
Well, either it has to be a good recording that we can really use, or we have to get it recorded. So I have a lot of good musical contacts in Madras, and if we need to get something recorded, I send them a video or audio of the piece, and then they record it in the studio. It's expensive.
I'm curious, Sheila, what is, like, if you were to just, close your eyes and think of your favorite dance that you would love to dance to any day, what would that be?
Yeah, people ask me that. It's whatever dance I'm working on at the time.
Okay.
Like right now, this morning, I was working with a student on Trimada Kautavam. So it's on Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati. And today, that's my favorite. If I had to choose just one piece from all the pieces I've ever learned, I would probably be Dashavataram. It's a beautiful choreography that one of my teachers did. He composed the music and did the choreography. He's C.V. Chandrasekhar. He just passed away last week. But he's just a magnificent artist. And it's all the different incarnations of Vishnu, 9 that have happened and 1 that's still to come. And it's very strong. It tells all of each story in detail. And then it has a very beautiful devotional section to that particular incarnation. And then it has a pure dance section that is like embodying the energy of that incarnation. And it's just gorgeous. He used the first verse of the Gita Govinda as the text, and then he composed the music and the dance. It's absolutely gorgeous.
So what was the hardest part of learning Bharatanatyam for you? Excuse me.
It was physically very hard. Oh, and really hard to have somebody tell me what to do with my face.
Yeah.
I felt very insulted. And I've had the same experience with most of my Western students, because in ballet, your face is your own. Your teacher can tell you anything from the neck down, but you get to do whatever you want with your face. And my teachers would be like, no, you have to do this. My mother always told me never to do that. You'll get wrinkles. And, like you can't have your eyes really open, or you have to have them really open, or you have to like lift up here, or you can do a smile, but you have to turn one corner of your mouth down, that your head has to be tilted a certain way. You have to, that I found very offensive. But it's worth it. It's like learning a language.
So you mentioned you have a dance company, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did you start your company?
Really, when I first came back from the States in 98, I mean, from India in 98, 78.
What was like the hardest part about starting a company?
Nobody was interested in and I didn't have any clients, and I'd never had any marketing experience, and I felt like a foreigner here. So it was easy to be a foreigner in India because everybody assumes you're stupid, you don't know anything. But, you know, if you're the right color here, they're like, she's just stupid. Because I didn't grow up here. You know, I came back here when I was 28. And I'd never had a regular job. I didn't know how to drive. I was just like clueless.
So how did you end up marketing?
Huh?
How did you end up marketing?
I just didn't. It was just slowly word of mouth. It's not something I'm good at.
So did you have any problems with being an American who was teaching an Indian dance style?
Yeah. A lot of Indians were hesitant to send their kids to me because they thought, she can't understand the soul of Indian dance. She's a white girl, you know, she can dance, because I was a good performer. I have to say that I was good. But they just didn't think I would be able to teach. And it was really only after my students started performing and they're like, oh, wow, all right, she can do it. And so now, now I have a really good reputation, and people, I think there are 20 students in the beginning group now.
Mm-hmm. Sheila, I was curious, when you came back to the US, which city did you come back to?
Birmingham. I came to Birmingham to visit my mom. She was teaching, she was a professor at UAB. And they offered me a job teaching Bharatanatyam through their dance department. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. It actually wasn't good, but it was okay. It got me started.
And did you teach when you were in India?
Only for my parents. Well, only for my parents. See, it's really like family, only for my teachers.
Okay.
You know, they say, okay, Sheila, go up and do teates with those girls.
How did you find performing opportunities when you left, like, your teacher?
That was hard. People didn't know anything about Indian dance. Mostly, I just put on shows myself. Somehow, on a shoestring, you know, I'd get some free venue and do some like Xerox posters and put them up everywhere and get together whatever little students I could get and perform myself. And that was how I did publicity, was just by performing, because basically I just love to dance. So I needed lots of opportunities to dance.
When you first moved to India, did you have any problems with the language barrier?
The school I went to was an English medium.
Oh, yeah.
So Rishi Valley has kids from all over India. We were the first white kids. They're kids from all over India, so their common language is English. When I went to college in Chennai, my college was Tamil medium. So I learned.
Do you still know how to speak Tamil?
Little. I can manage. Nalla pesa theriyadu. Ana pudiyum.
What are some struggles you have, like, while teaching? Or do you have struggles while teaching?
Oh, yes. Sometimes I have students that their bodies are just not made for dance. And that can be challenging, both for the student and for me. But I've had some really good success with that. Another challenge is if the student isn't really very interested. That I tell my classes, look, if you don't want to dance, go do something else. Don't bother me. Do what you're passionate about. I don't care what it is, but if you want to dance, be with me. But if you don't want to listen to what I have to say and you don't want to learn, don't come. I don't care if your parents want you to. Do something you love.
How do you teach more like complex like dances to younger students?
Just gradually, little by little. The traditional way of teaching is just you do artivos, which are the basic steps, for a couple of years. If I only did that, I wouldn't have any students at all. So I just have to make some very, very small, little easy dances so that they can feel like, oh, I got dressed up, I put on my jewelry, I got on the stage, I performed, everybody was happy. And that keeps them going.
Do you still perform to this day?
I did, yeah. Last summer I was Vishwamitra in a dance, Ramayana. Yes, so I had a long white beard and it was really fun. I like doing evil parts. One of my favorite parts that I did was Mantra in the Ramayana, the one that poisons Queen Kaikeyi's mind. Oh, that was a fun part. I loved it.
What part of your career are you most proud of?
Oh, gosh. My students. There's some that are just so, I mean, they're all different girls, different, but that relationship and the beauty that they bring with their own souls to Bharatanatyam, that's my proudest part, because this is so fulfilling for me. But if that were all it was, that would kind of feel empty to me. But if I can share enough so that my students find that kind of fulfillment and joy that I felt, then I feel like, okay, I've given something that can keep going.
Would you recommend your job to the next generation?
It depends on where you live. Don't go out to the Bay Area and start a school.
There are too many there.
Oh my God. One of my friends is a really good teacher. And she said, you know what? There are 3 Bharatanatyam good teachers in spitting distance. Yeah. So it just happened that I ended up in Birmingham and there wasn't really anybody else there to teach Bharatanatyam. So, I mean, more teachers came, after the next 15 years or so. But it's nice to be a big frog in a little pond.
Yeah. Do you have any specific advice for anyone who wants to start Bharatanatyam or become a teacher in the future?
You have to really love it. I mean, it has to just be something that you feel like if you didn't do it for a day, that was a wasted day. Yeah. You just have to love it. I know a lot of people that do it kind of as a business. I feel like it eats at your soul if you do it that way. Because to me, the reason for doing something, like devoting your life to something, is that it makes your life richer, not your bank account richer necessarily. I mean, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, but I know people that do like 15 Arangetrams every summer, and they charge like a very large amount for every Arangetram. And so they build these big, huge houses and they're all fancy. And to me, that just seems, I don't know, energy put in the wrong direction. Yeah. Because the thing that's fulfilling to me is when I'm teaching somebody getting ready for Arangetram, is to like find exactly what brings out what's unique and beautiful and wonderful about that particular girl or boy. And you don't do that fast. That takes a lot of time. And you really have to think about it a lot. Like one of my students has trouble like with her alignment of her shoulders. And so like every time I run across a video of some kind of shoulder work, I send her the video. You know, that kind of thing, like it's just like you would for your own family or some close friend, that if you know there's something that person would like or that would help them do whatever they're doing better, that kind of relationship, that to me, that's what's really meaningful and gives me joy.
Is there anything about your career that you would go back and change?
That I want to change?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Or any decision that you made that you would wish to do over?
Not really. I mean, some ways that I went in my life kind of took me away from dance, but they made my love of dance stronger. So I had to, I was not allowed at one point in my life to perform or to go to class for 5 years. And that was in a formative, well, that was when I was in my 20s, so my best dancing years. But I practiced every single day just because that was what gave me joy. So in a way, it seems like a detour away from dance, but at the time that I made that decision, I thought that performing was like a big ego trip. And then I realized later on that it isn't at all, because the joy that you feel as a performer, you share with the audience. You know, people come backstage in tears, you know. It's that the stories that you share, the joy that you feel, that sharing with the audience, that creates something bigger. I've danced for many, many different kinds of audiences. And it's a different experience for me depending on the audience. Like whatever the audience is attuned to, that brings it out in me when I'm performing. You know how they have in museums, they have old stringed instruments that are just in museums, right? So somebody has to come in and play those instruments at least once or twice a week, or they fall apart. So it's that kind of resonance that I feel that you can have with an audience, and that makes performing really wonderful.
I love this quote that says, "You grow through what you go through."
Yes, absolutely.
And you know, today there's a lot of we call instant gratification, right? So I talk to the kids about, you have to have patience. There are a lot of good things that come out of being patient and taking things slow and actually understanding and ruminating in them.
Right.
Any thoughts along those lines that you want to share in terms of, choosing a career? Because you've been very perseverant in how you pursued this, new life that you came to in the US in multiple ways. It was a new beginning for you, right?
Yeah.
And the energy that it takes for you to stick through those phases. Anything that you would like to share with the kids from that perspective? I would love to hear that.
I think you have to see who your audience is, who you want to communicate with, and see what will touch them. So I can do a Hindu story, a complete full Hindu story for the Baptist ladies and not offend them. So I do stories about Krishna and, his mother seeing a vision inside his mouth, and, mention that, as parents, we get so mad at our children and we just want to stab them and twist their ears and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden we see that they're just these divine beings. So to me, you have to find some kind of common chord between, like, if you love something completely, you have to find something in it that will speak to whoever it is that you want to engage with.
Very lovely. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very inspiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. That was quite a pleasure. And I wish you all the very, very best of luck in finding your passion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, hope you learned something new from this video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Bye!